If you've ever wished you had a podcasting pro with nearly a decade of experience whispering growth secrets into your ear, that's exactly what you'll get when you tune into Podcast Growth Tools with me, your host, Kylie Chandler. This is the ultimate show for you if you're ready to grow your podcast audience, skyrocket engagement, and turn your show into a traffic-driving, list-building powerhouse. I've been in the podcasting world since 2015, helping creators like Amy Porterfield grow their shows to over 1 million downloads a month. My superpower? Breaking down proven podcast strategies and marketing techniques into step-by-step guidance you can actually implement without fluff, overwhelm, or guesswork. On this show, we're getting real about what actually moves the needle when it comes to growing your podcast audience and using it to boost your email list growth. From actionable insights and expert interviews to behind-the-scenes secrets, I'll help you turn your podcast into a traffic-driving, list-growing machine. Grab your earbuds, hit subscribe, and let's take your podcast to the next level. Hey friends, and welcome back. So I have a question for you. Are you a podcaster who is feeling overwhelmed by social media, wondering if you should be on every platform, or questioning whether your efforts are actually driving traffic to your show? I get it. I'm right there with you. Today's episode is a must listen for content creators who want to grow their podcast audience through strategic, I repeat, strategic social media marketing. And here's the best part, without burning out. Okay, how do we do this? Well, I'm thrilled to welcome my guest, Elise Darma, a brilliant marketer and social media expert who has spent over the last decade helping entrepreneurs build their personal brands. She shares these game-changing insights on everything from creating hooks that capture your audience quickly to leveraging YouTube for podcast growth and even using AI tools to streamline your content creation. So we talk about a simple B-roll strategy that anyone can implement and quickly, which social platforms deserve your focus as a podcaster and why, how to craft DM strategies that actually convert followers. So we're talking mini chat, all the good stuff. And then tips for repurposing your podcast content across multiple platforms. Plus, Elise and I even talk a little bit about navigating entrepreneurship as a new mom. So both of us have babies under the age of 2. And so that was a new thing for both of us. So she shares a little bit about how she redesigned her business to align with her evolving priorities. Whether you are just starting your podcast journey or you're looking to level up, maybe freshen things up, then this episode is going to deliver actionable strategies that you can implement right away. So let's get to it. Welcome to the show, Elise.
Thanks, Kylie. I'm excited to be here.
I am so glad to have you here. It's really fun and it feels like such a full circle moment for me because we got to work together a few years ago when you were on Amy Porterfield's podcast. And I've
Mhm.
always loved watching your business. I feel like it's evolved so much since the first time I was introduced to you. And it's been such a beautiful journey. And you are just a brilliant marketer. And I'm one of your students. And so I just am so excited to have you here and to really speak to my audience, who are full of podcasters, but in this day and
Mhm.
age, a podcaster is a lot of times a YouTuber, a lot of times on social media. So I'm excited to have you here and speak about
Mhm.
all of that stuff.
I'm excited to chat with you. I loved your energy back when we worked together in the Amy Porterfield world, and I love your energy now. I'm super excited that you're focusing on helping podcasters grow their audience, especially through social media. So I'm here at your beck and call. Hopefully, I can help you and your audience today.
Amazing. Well, let's dive into the juicy part, the part that is kind of a pain point for a lot of social or a lot of podcasters. And that is, how am I supposed to be everywhere at once? What social media platform should I be focusing on? Should I be doing YouTube? And we're going to get more into the nitty-gritty of all this, but are my efforts going unnoticed because I'm not
Mhm.
getting any traffic? What am I doing wrong?
Mhm. Well, I commend anyone who is a podcaster because I completely understand the desire to have a podcast. When you look at the stats on who listeners are on podcasts, we know that they are typically higher earners than people who are on other social platforms. And I totally understand the commitment to wanting to do it. However, I think that you do have to leverage other platforms for visibility because, correct me if I'm wrong, podcast episodes don't necessarily show up in search results on Google, for example. Maybe they will one day.
They
Do they
are
now?
now a little bit,
Okay.
yes.
So it's starting to happen. That was
Mhm.
always my one grievance with podcasts is like, oh, I really want to have one, but how am I going to be found outside of my guests sharing my podcast or me sharing with my social audience? And that's what I would have done had I ever started a podcast. So that's great news
Mm.
that the episodes are going to be found in search. I'm glad search engines are moving along, just like we see TikToks in search engines and that sort of thing. We need more overlap, basically. But yeah, in terms of sharing your podcast, I think number one, if you don't have a massive audience or email list to share your podcast with, you should be leveraging social media platforms, which can give you the eyeballs to then get people to take action to go find your podcast, go download your latest episode. Or the other alternative is really collaborate with your guests and make sure they're sharing your podcast in front of their audience and then waiting for that snowball effect. But for me, I've been on social media for the last 10 years. I'd say I've grown my personal brand on social media, specifically Instagram, since 2016. So is that almost 9 years? That's wild to think. Social media is also a slow burn, just like your podcast growth can be. But I find, just like with a podcast listener, the quality of your follower is really high. Like when
Mm.
you nail your niche and your content speaks to your niche and your content relates back to your podcast, like it all just works together, and you don't need a massive audience, you don't need to go viral to get real people who are going to download your episodes and buy your products.
Oh, that's so good. So when we're talking about the content piece and we're thinking about being a podcaster, let's say that you were to coach someone who is a podcaster about their social media strategy. What are the things that we should be doing to stand out? I a lot of times I'll see these these reels that are saying like this type of reel is making all of these small accounts go viral. And it's like should we be jumping on those? Should we be doing just audio or video or like what is standing out as a podcaster? And I think I just had an answer in my head, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
Well, yes, there are those types of reels that hook someone in, and it's another type of format that you as a podcaster can create. But the funny thing is, there is another type of what's called a talking head video that's very popular on both TikTok and Reels, and it's where people are faking having a podcast. They're literally filming themselves from a side angle, so it looks like they're speaking to someone or speaking to their computer with a microphone. Maybe sometimes they have headphones on, and I swear they are not on a podcast. They don't have a podcast. They're just acting like they are on a podcast, and it puts them in a position of authority. It puts them it
Mm.
by default, the viewer is looking at them like an expert because they are speaking with that level of authority and not directly at the viewer, but it looks like they're speaking with someone else. So I was thinking the other day, I'm like, should I experiment with that kind of talking head video? I've done it as a joke in the past where I've kind of acted like I'm on a podcast, but in reality, every single podcast that I myself am a guest on, I should have my phone propped up on the tripod, filming me as I'm speaking. In fact, I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to take my phone. I've got a little sticky thing on the back. I'm going to film. Actually, let me. One tip when you're filming, use the point 0.5 lens. So I'm moving my video to the point
Okay.
0.5 lens so you can see more. Then I've got this sticky grippy that's going to go on my camera. I'm going to stick it to my screen in front of me. So now I'm filming myself as a guest on your podcast. And I believe that every podcaster should do this for real. And then today we have so many tools that can chop up the best clips really easily. So there's a tool that comes to mind called Minvo, and you can upload, your entire video of you speaking on a podcast and allow this tool to pull out your favorite moment. Or if you remember as the host or the guest what your favorite aha moment was, pull that out into a 15, maybe 30-second clip. You've nailed the style already where you're speaking with authority, you're looking off camera, and I would give that a go. So that
Mhm.
would be my bare minimum style that I would first try as a podcaster.
Okay, I love this. And you know me, I love a good like tactical, tangible thing. And if you guys are following along on audio, go check out the YouTube channel because just got to see Elise kind of in the moment deciding to really capture this. So please come back to us and let us know when you post this. Tag us, tag me,
Yeah.
and then we'll find, what kind of results you get, and we can kinda analyze them and talk
Absolutely.
through
Now that
again,
I've
but
set up my phone, I've got to post something. So I hope I have some gems that I pull from my episode from this episode and then I'll repurpose into a reel. So I am seeing that style do really well. I was on a podcast a few months ago where I believe she just filmed us on Zoom. So I asked for the file and my team member at the time took our two talking head video clips, which were blurry and grainy, but still we were able to edit something together where we could put our two talking head videos one on top of the other and pull a snippet of our conversation, add in some b-roll from my b-roll bank, and that became a clip that I was able to share on my feed and
Mhm,
drive people to her podcast. And the reason why I did that was because that podcast episode was unlike any I'd ever done before. I had revealed things about myself. It was a new side of my life, being a mother, and I wanted to share that with my audience. So I went through the effort of creating a reel, adding my B roll, adding my flair to it so that I can post it to my feed. So that was helpful as a guest, and I'm sure hopefully drove more traffic for her as a host.
oh, that's so good, and so when you're thinking about when you sit down to create content for social media, like, what is your process? What does it look like? Are you batching? Are you just, like, coming up with ideas on the go? What is a good process that we can as a podcaster, as an entrepreneur, as an online creator, sit down without burning ourselves out to really create good content that actually speaks to our audience and isn't just fluff.
Yeah. So the truth is, I'm both. I am both a batcher and someone who creates on the fly. I have a membership that basically teaches business owners how to batch their content. And
Mm,
every week they get 5 done for you ideas, video ideas that they can use for Reels and TikTok. And more, I'm just like, we've also learned how to use these ideas with AI. So I can run these ideas that are already adapted for business through my AI tool, spit something out really quickly. Whether the idea is good or great, it's almost like you're almost playing a numbers game with social media. For many years, there's been this belief that it's quality over quantity. Yes, that's true to a certain extent, but sometimes we just don't know what's going to resonate with our audience. It could be
mm,
something off the cuff. It could be something from ChatGPT's brain. It could be from my brain. Who knows? But in today's day and age, I'm a mom with an 18-month-old. I'm working part-time hours. Sometimes I just don't have time to overthink my content. So I'm doing a mix of both. I'm using the ideas that we ideate every week for our audience. I'm running them through AI, seeing if there's anything that stands out to me that I can just quickly create in terms of a B-roll reel with text on top. And I can go deeper into that if you'd like. And then there's times where maybe I am scrolling my phone, I'm taking a minute, I see an idea, and I find it funny, I find it informative, I find it aspirational. And then when I have an idea of how I can relate that to my brand, I write out a note in my notepad or I'll voice note
mm.
myself immediately because, postpartum brain, those
Oof.
ideas, they fly away fast. So I'll voice note it to myself or write it down and link to the inspiration. And then the next time I'm at my desk, if it makes sense to with our current promotion schedule or whatever we're doing,
Mhm,
I'll make it and post it right away. And sometimes the ideas that come from that hit of inspiration perform better because there's a different
mm,
feeling behind them.
yeah,
There's an energy behind it. I'm resonating with that idea so much more. So it's not to say that one is better than the other, but it's a numbers game. Sometimes my ChatGPT ideas do better than my in the moment ideas. I can't even predict it anymore, but all I can do is try to show up, share the ideas
mhm,
that are resonating with me today, especially as a personal brand. There's so many facets to a person. They
mhm,
aren't just their business, they aren't just their offers. And today, the way to build trust and the way to differentiate yourself from all these AI tools that we have or from all your competition, I believe, is to talk about other topics outside of what your business does.
right,
Like if you and I were to sit down and go for a coffee, we aren't just going to talk about who we help and how. and our offers the whole time, we're going to talk about motherhood. We're going to talk about postpartum. We're going to talk about where we live, our lifestyle. So the more we can kind of incorporate these stories in our content, the more we are going to differentiate ourselves from our competition, AI, and we are going to show up more as real people who are trustworthy as people to buy from on the internet. So it's kind of a cool thing.
Mm. I love that, and I hope everyone sticks around because we are gonna dive into a little bit more of the personal things. I wanna talk about motherhood with Elise because our babies are very close in age and being entrepreneurs, so we're gonna get into that. But I do wanna back up to the B-roll with text because I have heard that a lot of experts have said that's just a simple, system to put together that you can just do over and over again. So what is your process? And is it something that anybody can adapt?
Absolutely. Yeah. The first thing it starts with is collecting B-roll. So when we say B-roll, B-roll is a term from the film and television industry. So when, let's say, the characters on Friends are talking to each other, Ross and Rachel are talking to each other, that would be A-roll. That's that primary footage. But the moments where they're walking into the coffee shop or the coffee is getting presented to them and they're being handed their coffee, that's probably the better way to say it. That would be a B-roll moment where we're getting context to the situation. So I'm sure you've seen on social media an explosion of these B-roll moments where you're not talking directly to the camera, but you're sitting down at your desk. You are brewing a tea. You are sweeping your kitchen. You are tidying your living room. All these little moments captured on camera are all you need is like 5 seconds of these moments. And then the key is you're going to want to figure out what text to add on top of that moment. So generally, you want a really good hook that's going to speak to
Mm.
your target audience. And then it's up to you if you want to include like the meat of your thought in the text on your B-roll, or if you want to drive viewers to the caption and share more there. What I'm a really big fan of, which we can get more into as well, is having my audience capturing their attention with a B-roll text and with a hook, and the hook in the first line of my caption. But then if they want to find out more, if they want to go deeper on that topic, I invite them to comment a keyword, and when they comment that keyword, my software in the background will fire off a DM, and that DM will actually provide more information. It might provide more context than what I'd shared in my reel. So it kind of feels like a text from a friend in a way. It's not like I'm just sending them a link, which is a common marketing tactic today. It's like, hey, you wanted to know more about my YouTube marketing strategy? Well, here are the 10 steps I take in order to find a really good idea before I start scripting. This could be my automated DM. I could literally give them more information in the DM and then encourage them to like engage with my, let's call it a bot in the DM. And I can then program my bot to send them more follow up information. So it's a bit more of an in depth strategy, but I do find that those reels are the ones where I can get 800, 1,000 plus comments sometimes because everything is juicy, everything is hooky, and it's like, oh, I have to comment to find out more, right? And we now know that the comments are just so powerful, but for business it's really where the DMs are so powerful for business. It's really where that relationship starts between you
Mm.
and your future customer.
I wanna dive into mini chat and the DM strategy and everything, but before we get there, talk me through reels versus just a static post versus stories. Like, is there an equation for how much we should be doing of each? Especially for somebody like I'm a new entrepreneur, I'm a new podcaster. I've been in this space for a long time, but I'm new to all the things. I'm new to Instagram and it's a slow burn for sure. And so I'm like at the end of posting for a month, what do I need to look at to be like, should I keep going? What should I keep doing? All that stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, it depends on your objective. So, right now, it sounds like you're in a season of visibility. You want
Mhm.
eyeballs on your brand. And the best way to get more eyeballs on your content is through feed posts. So it could be a reel. We've seen a surgence of carousel posts becoming really popular and powerful because you can include a lot of text and really keep people on that post for a long time. And even image-based posts with a nice story in the caption can also do well. I would probably prioritize them in that order: first reels, then carousel posts, then static image posts. But the posts that go into your feed are the ones that get pushed out on explore pages and get pushed out to followers who the algorithm knows is already interested in similar content to what you created. So those kind of posts are the best way to get in front of a new audience. I see some coaches, I work with a lot of coaches in my world. I see some coaches spending a long time in their Instagram stories sometimes. Like sometimes their stories will have 15, 20 different slides. And if they're having fun, amazing. But when someone is just focusing and hyper focusing on their stories,
Mm,
stories typically just get seen by your followers. So if you're in a season of nurturing your followers, if you're in a season
mhm,
of seeing who's a warm lead in your following, who's seeing who's potentially a good person for your next offer, then you're really going to want to nurture your followers. And I find the best way to do that is through stories. So again, it depends on your season. So for me, I'm typically more in a visibility season by default all the time, always trying to grow an audience. And so if I'm going to sit down and if I have 20 or 30 minutes in my workday, if I have that time, I'm probably going to prioritize a post that's going to get in front of a new audience. So something for my feed. And then my story, if I have time, can be really quick. I mean, at minimum, I ideally want to post one story. If I don't know what to post that day, it could simply be a snapshot of me, what I'm doing in that moment, what I'm working on, just as a way to like connect with my audience just a little bit.
right.
If I have a bit more time, if I'm a bit more organized, then another type of story I could do is, again, it could be a snapshot of something from my camera roll, but including some text with a really good hook, something interesting to share, to expand upon that idea. And then in your story, just including a call to action for people to reply to your story with a keyword, which will again trigger my DM automation.
Mhm,
So the more I can create these automations, these DM flows, the more I can have them in my arsenal, the easier it is for me to be like, oh, I don't know what to post right now. Well, you know what? I have that free guide on AI for business. Why don't I just write up a story, have an interesting hook, share a few tidbits about the guide, include the comment, the keyword for people to reply to my story, and then I can fire off my DM automation that way. So yeah, at a default, I'd love to post just minimum one story a day and then focus on my visibility strategy, which is posting something to my feed that hopefully gets seen by my target audience.
oh, amazing. Okay, let's talk about your DM strategy, which I know you use mini chat, or at least that's what I know your programs and your website all says. And I actually took messaging magic, so I've
Oh,
seen kind of your
wonderful.
flows, which is so great. I would love to know, as a podcaster, like I think a lot of people, are using these bots, which is so great. But how do we keep those people who are commenting podcast or commenting the number of your episode or whatever to get that episode? Is there a way to kind of nurture them before beyond that first conversation where they're commenting?
Well, I think the stories are really great for that. If you wanted to share a few slides or go on camera in your stories, and again, stories expire within 24 hours. So it's not something that's going to live in your feed. But if you wanted to nurture your audience and warm them up, you can tease them, right? Like you and I could do a selfie right now. You can share it to your stories and be like, hey, I just chatted with Elise Darma. Get ready because we talked about XYZ. I'll let you know when the episode drops. So you've just planted that little seed. You've given your audience a nugget of what's to come. You can do that. Let's say this episode that we're recording right now, let's say it drops tomorrow and you haven't teased your audience, that's okay. You can just create a couple slides, create a couple stories before you drop the episode link to hook them in. It's all about hooking, right? It's all about what's the highest value thing that I'm sharing in this episode that you can turn around into a headline and really resonate with your target person. So let them know what that hook is. Maybe you can share some of the aha moments that you got from the episode and then invite them to like reply with the code word to get the link sent to their DM. So it just takes a little bit more effort if you have the time to warm your audience up. Sometimes you don't have the time. Sometimes the episode's published, it's just time to drive traffic to it, right? So you can only do what you can do. That's my philosophy these days anyway.
Especially these days as a mom, all right? So let's talk
Mhm.
about, you've mentioned hook And that is something that I talk about as well. Obviously, if you don't have the right hook for the episode, if we're not focusing on what the problem is that we're solving, it's gonna land flat. So when you are thinking about, I'm gonna create a post, I'm gonna create whatever it might be for social, and maybe it's different for YouTube, but we're gonna get into YouTube. How do you figure out what that hook is? And have you played around or tested anything? And can you report back on it?
That's a good question. Hooks, in my mind, have to create curiosity. And the better the hook is, the less likely the person is to feel like they already know the answer. Like, when you're watching a movie and
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I see where this is going. Your interest kind of dies off a little bit because you kind of like figured it out a little bit. And then when it starts to play out the way that you thought, you're like, okay, I don't have to watch this anymore. But if you can create a hook that makes someone so curious, that they're like, oh, what? It's not that? It's not what I always thought it was? Okay, now I have to comment to find out. So, yeah, luckily we do have a lot of AI tools these days that can help us with our hook writing. So, if ever I'm not sure what a good hook is, I might just voice record my general idea and maybe upload or send that voice note to ChatGPT or Claude and ask one of those AI tools to kind of massage it for a hook. But generally, I find the best hooks come from looking at social media, looking what's in my own feed, looking at what's being pushed to me, and kind of adapting those for my niches because that's the algorithm telling me what's already working. So, yeah, hook is very, very important because we're all human. Hooks are just a part of storytelling, and we all
Mhm.
really resonate the most with storytelling. And I would say for YouTube, if you want me to touch on that a little bit, the hook is really key when you're looking at both the title of the video and the thumbnail of the video. And that's what I've discovered, especially lately with YouTube, is for many years I used to focus on the searchability of my video and make sure my titles search
Mhm.
optimized. But now the algorithm is really interested in what's an interesting video that I can put in someone's home feed that they're likely to click on, right? They're it's the end of their day, they're relaxing. What are they scrolling? What are they going to click on? So I do find that now for YouTube, the hook is really, it encompasses three things really. One, what is the overall idea of your video? Is it interesting? Is it something you would click on? Two, does the thumbnail get attention? And then three, does that title really build upon the thumbnail or vice versa? Is the title really good and the thumbnail builds upon it with some curiosity? That's why you'll see a lot of thumbnails where it's like me holding the phone, something's blurred on the phone, and the title would be like, "This app changed the way I do Instagram marketing." You don't know what app I'm talking about. You have to click the video to find out, right? So that's all part of building a really good hook for a YouTube video.
Okay, that's so good. And I want to get into YouTube because a big piece of the podcasting conversation, and it's got two sides to it, is should podcasters be going to YouTube? Should they keep audio as audio? And so, what are your thoughts on the whole thing? I know that, 2025, I've been following along. You're very excited about YouTube, and you are an expert. I mean, the numbers, their success leaves clues. So here you are. And so, share a little bit about YouTube and how you're feeling about it, what you think about podcasters being on it. And then let's get into some tangible stuff after that.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube is the original home of long form content, and
Mhm.
podcasting is long form content. So I just think they're such a great match. I do think that if you are going to put your podcast on YouTube, it makes sense to have your own special channel just for your podcast. So for me, if I were
Mhm.
to just suddenly podcast and then put those YouTube or put those podcast episodes on my YouTube channel, it's not really in sync. So I would create a separate channel just for my podcast, and I would try to invest in my video filming equipment as much as possible. I know most people do podcast episodes virtually, right? So making sure that you have good camera quality on both ends so that you can turn that episode into something that's, yes, maybe somewhat interesting to watch, but more than anything, I think it's the discoverability that YouTube gives you. And then people can just hit play and like listen to that podcast episode in the background while they're working, while they're clean, whatever. And YouTube loves when people are listening and watching and have their attention, have the retention going on for a long time, right? That like my YouTube videos are on average 12, maybe 15 minutes, And so it's an okay time to capture someone's attention. But if I'm posting a podcast episode that's between 30 and 60 minutes, that means I have someone on the YouTube platform for that length of time. It means that if I monetize, YouTube can play ads several times throughout the episode, and then you can earn ad revenue through that way as well. And yeah, YouTube just really loves long form content, but I do think that it does need to be a little more elevated than a, like, let's say, a grainy Zoom replay. You know what I mean? Like, we do want high quality video content as much as possible. We maybe want the best hookiest clip pulled out from the episode and put right at the beginning so that people's attention is it's hooked, just like in your intro, right? Your intro might have some hooks and some reasons why people should keep listening. I like when that's pulled at the beginning of the clip and then you just dive right into the interview. And yeah, I mean, you might not go viral on YouTube by posting your podcast there, but I've seen some successful podcasts make that transition to putting their episodes on YouTube as well as on their podcast show, and create tons of subscribers, tons of viewers, and money from ad revenue as well. So it's a win-win, I think.
Mhm. I know. So we talked a little bit about the title. You talked about the thumbnail quality, the description of the YouTube video. Like what should be in there? I know there's hashtags, links. Is it better? Like what are the tips there? Is it better to just say links in my bio? Like what how are we cuz another piece that I'm always thinking about is like how are we driving these people to our email list? So
Yeah.
if that's part of the equation, what should we be doing for the YouTube description?
Yeah, I love this question. I'm actually overhauling the way I include my videos and I have my descriptions, because for so many years it's like, add as many links as you can to your description, add as
Hmm.
many keywords, make them super long. And I think you're right. At the end of the day, we want people to get onto our YouTube video or listen to our podcast and ultimately take the next step. And generally that's one place. Like, the next step is one place that you want to lead them to, whether it's your opt in, your freebie, maybe your low ticket offer. So I'm going to be simplifying my YouTube descriptions completely. I'm going to be really highlighting one link and putting that right at the top of my description so that interested people see it in the preview and they know it's very easy for them to know where to go next. They're not overwhelmed by 20 different affiliate links. Like, hey, I don't need to link all my Amazon equipment, for to earn a tiny commission. That's not important to me. I'm doing this because I want to generate leads and customers from my YouTube efforts. So I would say simple is best. Again, so many AI tools that can help you write up a description really easily based off of the content of your episode. Hashtags, I don't think they really help you for discoverability. The YouTube algorithm is smart enough to know what the content is within your video based on what you're talking about, what you're showing. So you don't need to like list off a ton of hashtags, just like you don't need to on Instagram. These algorithms know. They know exactly what your content's
Mhm.
about. So, yeah, keep it simple. And I would say share one main link, maybe up to three links that your audience can go to, but don't overwhelm them with links.
Okay. Well, that's I mean, it only makes sense. I was just reviewing one of my clients' show notes today, and she had, like, 5 links or something like that, and I was like, "Oop, too many call to actions, like, let's be succinct." So, I am gonna link for my listeners, I am gonna link a show of Elise's from her YouTube channel so we can all see this in action, we can all see the simplicity. But when you said that, Elise, I was like, "Oh, that's great news." Like, we have
Yeah.
enough to do already. I love that, simplifying it. Can you let's go back to the thumbnail thing. So you talked about the thumbnail, make sure it's good. You're talking about like the actual graphic of the thumbnail. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
So
correct.
where do you get your ideas to make them stand out?
Well, funny enough, I go to youtube.com, and right on that home screen experience, I'm looking at a curated view of all the videos that
Mm.
YouTube thinks I would be interested in. So some of them are probably marketing related. A lot of them are Miss Rachel these days,
Yep,
baby
agreed.
content. So yeah, you do have to be aware that feed is curated based off of your habits, but just scroll that and see what stands out to you, because the videos that are making it out onto your home feed are there for a reason. The algorithm
Yeah.
thinks, and it's already seen, that people like you are interested in this content. So scroll that feed and screenshot the ones that you would click on. You don't even have to click on them, but the ones that catch your eye, screenshot those, and then create a bank of thumbnails that inspire you. Or if you
Mm,
don't want to, if you just like this one style, go ahead and mimic it for your YouTube thumbnail that you're going to create for your next video. And I've experimented with my style, but funny enough, I still find that what I started with works to this day. And what I started with is, imagine a YouTube thumbnail. One half of the thumbnail is basically my face making an expression, whether it's shock, awe, maybe it's neutral, maybe it's sad, maybe it's angry, some expression. So it's a pretty tight shot. It's like maybe my shoulders up, and then the other half of the thumbnail is pretty bold text. The text used to be based off of search topics. I wanted to be found in search, but now it's more about curiosity. Now it's more about piquing people's
mhm.
interest and having the text on my thumbnail complement or add to the title of my video. I don't think they should be the same. They should build upon each other. So, yeah, like I said, I've experimented with many styles, but that default style still seems to work to this day.
Okay, that's some good tangible stuff. Anybody who's like trying to figure out what thumbnails they should do, go ahead, do that exact thing. So, where do shorts play into all of your YouTube strategy?
They're going to play more into my strategy in 2025 because especially what we've seen happen with TikTok and its ban that didn't really happen, but a lot of people felt toyed with, especially TikTokers who were really earning their main income off of the views from their channel. It was a scary prospect to feel like the app would just be unavailable to them to that day. So I think that that experience taught people a lot that you shouldn't just be on one platform, and you should probably make your content in a platform that allows you to export a file that can be posted across many platforms. So instead of making
Mm,
your video on TikTok, make it inside of an app like CapCut or InShot. And yes, you might have to pay for a pro version, but then you can download your edited video without a watermark on it. And then it's free range to post on Shorts, on Threads, on Instagram, on X, on I said Shorts, Pinterest, even. It's able to be repurposed.
mhm,
So I think, when you make a video specific to a platform like the TikTok culture or the Instagram culture, it's probably going to perform best there. But like I said at the top of this episode, to me, social media and traffic, it's a numbers game now, right? If you're
mhm,
putting all this effort into making a really good TikTok, why not export out a version that can go across all platforms? Ideally, you're working with a team member or a VA who can take that file and do that repurposing for you. I know there are tools out there that can help you with repurposing as well. But yeah, like you're putting in that effort, let's get it across all platforms. So I am no expert in shorts by any means. I'm not sure what the culture of shorts is specifically because it came after TikTok. It came after
mhm.
Reels. I think it came after Reels. But at this point, my focus is on, Reels first and TikTok, and I'm just going to be sharing across all platforms and experimenting and see what takes
Oh,
off
no.
across all platforms.
Amazing. Well, I we don't have too much longer left, but I do want you to touch on TikTok. So I am not on TikTok, but I know some of my listeners are. So let's briefly share your expertise on if you had a podcast, what would you be doing on TikTok to drive audience awareness, downloads, all that good stuff?
Well, like I said, TikTok is the place where I believe people are pretending they're on podcasts and posting those clips that look like they're authority figures. And I even looked up a creator today if to see how many clips she posts of her kind of talking off camera with the headphones on and to see if she even had a podcast she was promoting, and I couldn't find one. So TikTok loves longer form content. Longer means like 3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, because people are scrolling on TikTok. I don't know about you, but I love the TikTok algorithm. And as I'm getting ready in my 5 minutes, I'll find someone's get ready with me or a day in the life type experience. And they're just doing a voiceover. They're talking. I'm doing my makeup. It's kind of like hanging out with a friend. And it's very easy to listen to long form content on TikTok. And I think people don't know that. They think TikTok is just the trendy dance videos. Yes, it is where most trends do start from, but there is a definite place for long form content on TikTok. And funny enough, since the TikTok ban didn't happen, and we don't really know what agreement's been made with Meta or anything quite yet, but I've already noticed changes in the Instagram algorithm.
Mhm.
Months ago, when I was scrolling the Instagram algorithm, I would only see 3 second, 5 second B-roll type of reels with text on top. But now I'm seeing longer form talking head videos. I'm seeing vlogs on Instagram. So I think, yeah, I think all platforms are moving more and more towards long form content. And podcasts are just interesting, especially if you have a two-way conversation and you're able to edit the video in a way where,
Mhm.
we can see both of our faces. Maybe it's one head on top of the other. And we're seeing a snippet, a really interesting snippet of that conversation. It's worth putting there on TikTok. I'm thinking of some of the clips I see on TikTok, and a lot of times it's people in podcast studios, so they're in the same studio
Mhm.
talking. There's the professional videos set up. Yes, that's ideal to have eventually one day, right? We can't all live in LA and have our guests come through our studio. But for now, using the virtual tools that we have and just focusing on the most interesting content to share out on the platform, I think can you never know. You could go viral.
Mhm.
You just never know.
Well, that's so great, and, we are like, on Instagram, YouTube Shorts, we are seeing that they are, going longer. You can do longer now, and I think that it's interesting you say that because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I think that was right after the TikTok ban that all of a sudden Instagram's like, 'Oh, yeah, by the way, you can do 3-minute reels now,' or whatever it is."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's great for repurposing as well, we're not having to we can use some of the stuff we create across the board.
Mhm.
So, Elise, I believe we both had this is like personal, a little bit of a traumatic birth story.
Mhm. Mhm. I
And
definitely did.
same, same.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I'd love to dive just maybe a few minutes into just how this first year was for you. And because I know for me, like, it took a long time. I feel like I'm just starting to feel like myself again. So,
Yeah. For sure.
would you
Yeah.
be open to sharing that?
Yeah, absolutely. No
Okay.
problem.
Okay, Elise. So we're both mamas. We figured out that our
Mhm.
kids are like 4 months apart or something. And I don't talk about it often, but I had a pretty traumatic birth. Did not go how I expected, which I think a lot of mamas can relate to. But it
Mhm.
took a long time to even feel like myself again. Like that first year, I don't even know what happened. Like my
Oh,
brain was just somewhere else the whole year. So, what was that like for you as an entrepreneur and trying to grow a business that, sustains your guys' lifestyle, but recover and be a mama and figure out this whole first time mom thing?
yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. I never thought that I would be in the traumatic birth
Mm.
club, but here we are. And it was such a lesson in control and how, as a type A perfectionist entrepreneur, I'm so used to creating an environment where I feel fake in control, right?
Mm.
And I can post something, I can send an email and feel like, I feel accomplished. I feel like I have a sense of what I'm doing today. And then you give birth and you realize
Mm.
that that is the least controllable circumstance in life. I had an amazing, beautiful pregnancy, and then the birth went completely sideways, and we ended up staying in hospital for almost 2 weeks. And I had an emergency C section, and the healing was I was so unprepared. And
Yeah.
I know that all this going into it, your brain changes, your priorities shift, but to experience it is something completely else. And I don't think I had the power to really check in with my team, look at Slack for the
Mhm.
first 3 months. I want to say there was so much recovery time, there was so much figuring out newborn life that I didn't start working again till about the 4 month mark, and even that was a little early to have to bring in a nanny to have help. And it was hard. I would show our nanny how to take care of him, and then I would go cry in the corner and then figure out how to work. Like, I wasn't emotionally there yet. So it's been a journey. The first year of having a little one, definitely shifts priorities. And I would say it took me about a year to feel back to myself. And they say that it takes a full 2 years to fully
Mm.
recover from postpartum, right? So I think you're right there, and I'm right behind you. So I don't know. I don't know if I have a really clear answer yet, other than it's completely shaken everything I thought to be true. It's completely shifted all of my priorities. I do not work the same way I used to work. It's impossible because work is just not as important. And you can see how fleeting the moments are, how fast these babies
Yeah.
grow, and how you don't want to miss it. So I'm just trying not to cry right now. Yeah.
I know. It's beautiful, and it's what a blessing to be able to be an entrepreneur and to step
Yeah.
away when you need to. I was in a mastermind yesterday, and my little girl fell down the stairs outside, and she landed on her back, and I literally was like,
Oh.
"I gotta go. I'll be right back," and, just to be able to do that and to be there for these moments that are so fleeting, it's really a blessing. How do you feel like you've changed your business? Like, what things have changed in your business to fit your lifestyle better now that you're a mama and have a little guy?
Well, before my maternity leave, it was all about trying to automate and
Mhm.
yeah, automate. We really focused in on the many chat strategy and creating DM flows so that there was a DM automation for all of our freebies, all of our offers. And then I really focused on automating my content creation system, or at least passing it off to my team so they could do that. And now I would say we're almost 2 years past that. Now with AI tools, there's just so many ways that we can be more efficient with the tasks, the everyday tasks in our business, that it's actually made me scale down in a way. It's made me
Mm,
scale down my team. I've wanted to simplify things a lot more. Since becoming a mom, I'm not chasing massive revenue numbers like I was in 2020, 2021. The markets change, my business has changed. Everything is just a lot more chill. And a couple years ago, I would have really fought that, like, ooh,
mm,
sales are down, or oh, I have a smaller team. That means I'm a quote failure. And now I see it so differently. Like it's actually me designing my business to fit my lifestyle. I'm designing my business so that I only have to work 4 hours a day. I'm no longer working 8 hours like I did before. So of course my output's going to be different, the access to my clients is going to be different, things change. So it's really been a scaling down and not letting my ego tell me that there's something wrong with that, and letting it be more like a reminder of no, the whole reason why I created this business was to fit my lifestyle so I can live the
mhm.
best life possible. And right now I want to be available for my family. I want to go for morning walks. I don't want to be racing to my office. He was sick today. I spent most of the day holding him and hanging out with him, and that was amazing. I wouldn't trade that for the world. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I think that you are a really beautiful mentor for any mama entrepreneur who's trying to navigate those early years, and I think you hit it on the head when it's, like, paying attention to what your ego is saying you should be doing. I think especially as, overachievers or just high achieving people, it's really, motherhood can be amazing for you is all I'm gonna say, and very challenging. So thank you for sharing that, Elise. So what do you have going on in 2025? Tell us about what offers you have available and all of that.
Well, again, part of my downsizing, let's call it. It's funny, I'm actually creating more offers than ever before. I'm filling out my
Mm,
my offer suite so that I'm able to help my audience in more ways. So for example, I help my audience grow their business on social media through Instagram, through TikTok, through YouTube. I have all the courses for all those things. But oftentimes people would come to me and say, I am taking your course, Videos Vault, for example, so that I can launch my business on Instagram. But I don't yet have a business and I don't yet have a thing to sell. And I thought that was really interesting that I was attracting such a beginner audience and I had
mhm,
nothing to help guide them on how to start their business or create an offer. So I'm really focused on offer creation right now. We launched a new course called Offer Vault Plus that teaches you how to make low ticket offers that lead to high ticket sales. And
mhm,
right now I'm building out another course called High Ticket Vault, which is how to make high ticket offers, which is majority of where your profit tends to come from. So I'm really focused on offer creation to complement all of my courses that do teach social media monetization. So all of that you can see at courses.elisedarma.com. There's honestly so many. So there's not one thing that I'm going for. I'm definitely in an experimental phase and listening to my audience and trying to serve them as best as I can.
I love that. Well, like I said, I've taken your courses. I've taken a lot of your used a lot of your content and you guys, it's golden. So make sure you grab it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
one last fun question for you. If you could sit down with any podcaster, who would it be? Why and what would you ask them?
Mm. I mean, I was going to say Amy Porterfield, but I have chatted with her. I'm
Haha.
not sure I've asked her every question that I have in mind. I really like the guys from the podcast called My First Million. I
Mhm,
discovered them a few years ago, and they're funny interviewers.
mhm.
But yeah, they really they teach kind of bigger complex business strategies in a simpler kind of way, in a more of like a casual, let's say a broy kind of way. But it's interesting to listen to. I don't know what I would ask them though. That's a good question. Or what I would ask Amy. I feel like Amy's doing a good job of like showing up her as a more real person, and I feel like I get to
Mhm.
know her more than her polished look that she had a couple of years ago. Um, hmm. I would ask the guys on My First Million, why haven't they had me as a guest yet? Maybe that would be the question.
I have 1 degree of separation. I can connect you. Maybe we'll make that happen for you in
Oh, wow.
2025. So,
Hilarious. Okay, cool.
well, Elise, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing so much knowledge. Thank you for being vulnerable. I love what you're doing in this world, and it was a real honor to have you here.
You're so sweet. Thank you, Kylie.